Here we go.
All right.
Still preparing, huh?
Yeah, just taking a quick look at a few thoughts there.
Doesn't typically take this long.
No, I think they were having some issues with the restream earlier with the weather. I'm just going to check and see if we're online real quick just to see. I know we're recording.
I'd like to rebroadcast this on my radio station, so I should be able to download the file. Is that right, Brother Bedford?
Yes, I'll send you the link for the file.
Perfect.
I'm going to reconnect it. Georgia said it was unable to live stream it. There we go. There we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Power Podcast All-Star Live Stream Series. I am your co-host slash moderator, Brother Bedford, and we want to welcome you. Thank you for spending with us your precious time, taking an hour to spend your most valuable resource, your most valuable asset with us. We can never thank you enough. So we really do appreciate that. What we want you to do, as of right now, we need you to go ahead and tell everyone that we're live and in living color with Dr. George C. Fraser and Oscar Hines. Go ahead and hit that share button right now, so that'll give everybody an opportunity to get over here. Go ahead and share it on your regular pages, in your Facebook groups. Go ahead and hit that share button. Let them know that we have something very important that we want to share tonight with everyone. Now, while we're waiting on everyone to get over to the page or over on YouTube, we want you to go ahead and type in your name and where you're from. We've been having a tremendous outpouring of support from South Africa, Canada, actually several, I said South Africa, but I mean Nigeria. It's been amazing to see all of the different people who've been chiming in and enjoying the messages and the caliber of people that we've been sharing. So again, we thank you to our brothers and sisters over across the pond. We thank you over in London. We thank you down in Barbados. We thank you in the Bahamas. We thank you from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Next thing I need you to do, as you go ahead and share this and type in your name and where you're from, I need you to go ahead and click that follow button. Click that follow button on Dr. George C. Fraser's fan page. That way you'll get notified with all of the podcasts that we have coming up. As you know, George mentioned last week that we're winding down the first stretch, but we got some real important things, some real big things coming to you. So we want to make sure that we stay connected with you. So go ahead and follow so George can keep you updated with all of the future podcasts, as well as all of the thought-provoking ideas that he shares with us on a daily basis. So go ahead and do that as well. Another way that you can get notified, go to www.newblackpower.com, enter your name and email. That way I'll be able to send you email notifications of when we're going live and who's up and coming. So we want to make sure that you get that. Now make sure that you confirm your email address. So once you enter your name and email, you're going to get a reply email. Make sure you hit that confirmation link, because that's the only way that you'll be able to receive the information. If you don't hit that link, people have been replying saying, I'm not getting the notification, and it's because I can't spam you. I need you to confirm that you can receive email notifications from me, and that is the way to do that. And now as we get ready to get into this very powerful conversation, I mean, tonight's podcast represents two of the skill sets, probably the most important skill sets that you're going to need and I'm going to need to acquire and master as we move forward past COVID-19 as well as the protests and all of the different issues that we're dealing with the economy. I think it was announced yesterday that the economy was officially, put that up in air quotes, officially in a recession as of yesterday. I've been on record telling people that we had some issues prior to then, but they officially announced that we've been in a recession since February. So you can imagine it's several months later that this economy is going through a lot of drastic shifts, a lot of changes. And there are two skill sets that we must begin to master and begin to be able to utilize them. And when I say utilize them, that's what tonight is all about, showing you how to build effective networks. That's what this podcast represents, effective networks, relationships. And you notice I said there's an S on networks. It's not network, it's networks. There are several different networks that you're going to have to build. And then the other skill that you're going to need is how do you influence these networks to make things happen, to get things done. So tonight we have the #1 guru on networking, the host of this podcast, the Power Podcast, Dr. George C. Fraser, 6-time best-selling author on this subject matter of building effective relationships and networking, almost 400 awards and citations. I could go on and on and on about all of the accolades and the awards that Dr. Fraser has received. We've also stated that he is a Business Hall of Famer, which I think is critical to point out. We love to talk about all of our sports Hall of Famers, but we don't give enough recognition to our business Hall of Famers, those who are paving the way, building businesses, employing people, creating industries, all of these different things. We have them in our midst, and we need to make sure that we highlight them. So we have Dr. George C. Fraser, and of course, a gentleman who's going to take us deeper into the art of influence, of course, Mr. Oscar Hines. And so without further ado, I want to turn you over into the hands of the Business Hall of Famer and the host of the Power Podcast, Dr. George C. Fraser.
Good evening, Brother Bedford. Welcome, Oscar. Good to see you.
It's a pleasure, Doc. Looking forward to talking to you.
This is going to be a great conversation. It's a timely conversation. I wore my ultra cool glasses tonight so that I could approximate the coolness of you and Brother Bedford. That is going to be very hard for a guy like me, but every little prop helps, you know. I'm excited about the conversation. I've been excited about our friendship and partnership since our move to Houston, Texas for our Power Networking Conference, which is coming up October the 14th through the 17th, right in your backyard.
Yes.
And you have made major strides intellectually, verbally, as a speaker, as an author, on the subject of the art and science of influence. This is huge. This is especially appropriate at this time. So I think the conversation is going to be fascinating and interesting. I have some great questions I want to ask you about. And I want to talk to you a little bit about white privilege and how we can use our influence to mitigate that. And but I'll put a pin in that, and we'll talk about that later. But I want to give you a proper introduction because you're all that in a bag of chips. Just for the ladies out here who watch us, and actually 60% of our viewing audience are sisters, brilliant, fine sisters. And I just want to put you on notice that Oscar's single. Really get that many accomplished, handsome men. So I just putting that out there. But let me get serious here for a moment and just try to do a dramatic read on Oscar's bio. Again, it's truncated because we don't want to take all the time that it would take to list his accomplishments for his many years. But Oscar was born in San Jose, Costa Rica, and he moved to New York when he was 4 years old, where he grew up. He always had a keen interest in communications and human behavior after a successful career in corporate America. He pursued his passions as an entrepreneur. Today, Oscar is an interdisciplinary communicator that uses several modalities to connect with others, including kinesthesiology, I think I pronounced that correctly, graphology, emotional causation. These are big words. And when used together, these disciplines allow for deeper interpersonal connectivity. He is a certified health and wellness practitioner and has trained and practiced energy work and healing. Oscar is a certified speaker through the Les Brown Institute and is a host of the Edge radio show, Natural Nation Network, a program that focuses on emotional, spiritual, and physical health. He has appeared on local and syndicated radio talk shows for over 2 decades throughout the country and has made TV appearances on local news programs including CBS, Fox, ABC, the local cable and TV networks. Oscar has always been passionate about communications and has skillfully interwoven seemingly unrelated sciences to produce one of the most comprehensive books on communications that's ever been written. I've read his book. It's up here in my library. It is simply outstanding. The title of the book is Ninja Communications, The Art and Science of Influence. This is a book that reveals the inside secrets of becoming a powerful influencer by understanding and using the science of communications. Oscar is owner and CEO of Edge Radio Network, a Houston-based AM/FM talk radio station that live streams numerous subject matter experts on topics that range from business and sports to health and relationships. His mission is to help people gain a better understanding of others and self through enhanced communications. Oscar, thank you so much for being with us. I know I butchered a couple of those words. And we want to get right into it and give you all the time that we can muster to cover this extraordinarily important subject. And in light of everything, and you said it, we said it, we talked about it prior to going on in spite of everything that is going on right now in this country, Oscar, and around the world, why is this book on communication and influence so important? That's number one. And what makes it different from other communication books?
Yes, yes. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. I am such a great, great fan of this podcast. I've enjoyed the luminaries that you have brought on, and I'm just appreciative to be able to share a little bit with the audience. We're living in a very, very crucial time right now because everything is shifting. And I'm talking not just the social constructs, but there's an energy shift that's happening as well. And people, unfortunately, are in a situation now where if they are not effective communicators, it could mean their life. And that's something that absolutely everybody has to pay attention to. But communication, for the most part, is the linchpin of every single relationship that we have, whether it's with our significant other, whether it's with our business associates, whether we're trying to close a major deal, whatever it is, it's going to always have that linchpin, which is effective communication. We have to get to like you, you have to get to like us, we have to trust you, you have to trust us, and now we can do business together. And so we are now in a very, very interesting time. It's almost like some kind of parallel universe just hit. But to get into the second part of your question, which is what really makes this different, what we do is we look at a composite. We've seen, for an example, in a case where there's some kind of culprit, you get a sketch artist, and the sketch artist sits down with the person that's seen them, and they'll say, is it this kind of nose or that kind of nose? Is it these eyes or that eyes? So what they're doing is they're putting together a composite. That composite is an approximation of what that person looks like based on these separate characteristics. Communication is a full contact sport. And when we look at the composite, that's when the real picture starts to come together. You know, there was a study done back in the 1970s. 93% of communication, they say, is nonverbal. So that means only 7% of the words coming out of my mouth is what you're hearing is the message. Most of the message you're perceiving from my body language, from my voice inflections, from my cadence, all those nuances. And I have to compliment you, Dr. Fraser. I'm going to confess a little man love here with you. I share this in the way of sort of crystallizing my point. We were at the radio station. I didn't know Dr. George C. Fraser was going to be there that morning. And of course, I'm in my office. I turn on my TV, my in-house computer so I can see what's going on. And I hear this amazing voice. That's the first thing I hear. And I hear the pace and the pitch. And I love to analyze those nuances. And I'm saying, wow, this is an elocutionist that's here. And then I look and finally I see a white man in the studio talking about Black issues. At least so I thought, right? And I get up and I walk into the studio. And right at that moment, you said, yes, I am a Black man. And I was absolutely enwrapped by the way that you communicated, the way that you expressed yourself, not just the words, but the manner in which you use those words, the way you use your pausing and phrasing. See, that's a ninja communicator, or as Dr. Fraser might say, just gangster.
Right.
But so with communication, you embodied all of those elements, all the different nuances that are necessary to influence outcomes in this time we're living in is absolutely crucial, because we have to decide who are friends, we have to decide who are foes, and there are literally 5, 7 different disciplines that you can turn to, from body language to handwriting analysis. When we talk about emotional causation, which I can't wait to get into, that's how emotions affect our body. You know, as a holistic practitioner, I've worked with a number of people that have had health issues that were all emotionally related. So we're able to take those different things and look at them and then get that composite so we know who we're dealing with and why we're going to say what we're going to say through what we might call intentional communication.
You said something at the top of that response, that there is an energy shift. Unpack that for those who might not get that fully as you mean it or intend to mean it.
Wow. Okay, Doc. Well, you're gonna take us deep. So let's get our scuba gear on.
A deep audience.
I know you do, and so I appreciate being able to really articulate that piece, because energetically, all of us are energy-based beings. We literally are energy-based beings, and I have done demonstrations on stage where I would literally move somebody's energy and either help them to or make them stronger or make them weaker using a kinesiology test. And no matter how hard they tried, they weren't going to be able to shift it until I was ready to shift it. Now, that doesn't make me particularly talented. It just gives me the ability to understand how you shift energy through your intention. So every single thought that we have has a vibrational frequency. Those frequencies emit outwards, and they actually can affect matter. I mean, these were tests that were done all the way back in the early 1900s by people like Max Planck and Heisenberg and of course, Einstein. And all of these men discovered that they used a wavelength. And whenever you observed the wavelength, it changed from a beam to a particle. And when you stopped observing it, that is when you took your attention off of it, it went back again. What that proved is that unequivocally, our intention and our attention affects outcomes. Now, just imagine if you have a collective number of 7 billion people who have been subject to fearful thoughts around an insidious virus, around the potential mortality of the people that they love. Some were beaten, some were threatened by their leaders, and energetically, everybody started moving into a space of fear. That fear alters the energy of the planet, of the individuals, and in fact, of the entire world as a collective. So the shift that's taken place is now creating two dynamics. The first of which we see the outcomes, and there's a trifecta that's actually taken place. And the trifecta consists of three energetic shifts that all happened in the year 2020. And that's a whole other different topic, but I at least want to put a label on the three of them. One is the financial. The financial shift, and I know most financial experts will say every 7 years there's a shift. There's some statistical data that shows that every 66 years, there are significant shifts in the financial moving of money around the planet and how recessions and economies shifts. And that's at that time. We're now due to have that shift in 2020. There is also, and this is, just based on what we're seeing around us, like the greenhouse effect, we're on the downward crest of the overheating of this planet, and that's affecting us as well. But the third one, and perhaps the one most relevant to this discussion, is the one based on men having cycles of war. And they can go back from 1776 to the War of 1812, to the Spanish War, to the World War I, to World War II, Vietnam, North Korea. Every single war can be drafted on a chart and shown that there is a pattern, a predictable pattern, and we're now at another one of those apexes. So we're going to be inclined towards a warring spirit, and they believe it has to do with solar flares. So I know that goes into a lot more than perhaps this particular conversation warrants, but the point is that that's a trifecta of disruption. And if we can understand that all of us are energy-based beings, and that our communication is not just through our 5 senses, but through 6 senses. And in our conversation this evening, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
There is a major shift, and the fear and all of that means that some people are now awakened that have been completely sleeping. They just got woke. And others that have chosen to ignore things are now getting the spotlight put in their face in such a way that they have to acknowledge it. Look at Goodell, Robert Goodell's comments. How long did it take for him to acknowledge that? And people like that are all seeing the horrific injustices to our Black people on this planet. So that energy is absolutely shifted. And now is a time for all of us to unite and connect, both on a spiritual as well as energetic level, to shift outcomes all around the globe.
Yeah, that's powerful. I'm going to pick up on that later. You were very nice and very complimentary about my communication skill. My philosophy has been very, very simple in effective communications, and I think you talked about that in sort of your introductory comment. I have always believed the need to speak to the whole person, right? Not just with the right words, but looking at the person, observing body language, picking up the words unspoken, the sentences in between the sentences, and as you mentioned, um, much of our effectiveness in communication is in speaking to the entire body, speaking and observing the entire person, right? And exhibiting to some degree empathy, and putting yourself in a sense in that person's position, in that person's mindset, right or wrong. But your expressions back to them when they're speaking, all of that to me is a part of effective communications. That becomes a little bit more difficult when we're talking on radio and into a microphone and television. But holistically speaking, that's really how I have approached my style of communication. In addition to trying my very best to be a wordsmith, right? But to try to speak organically and try to speak purposefully, but it takes years and years of practice. You speak of becoming a ninja communicator. What does that mean?
Well, I chose the ninja because ninjas are representative, and I think sometimes we think of the 1970s, kung fu flicks, but if you go back to the 15th century, the ninja was known for stealth, and so a ninja could get in places and out of places without anyone ever knowing that they were there. So they relied on the power of stealth, very much like the CIA, the Mossad, or the MI6. And if we think about it in that context, when you were just talking, Doc, about the observations of somebody that you're talking to, when we are speaking to someone, they're going to give us micro expressions. So as we look at them, their eyebrows may flash, they may nod knowingly. They give us indications that they're on the same page that we are.
Their heads tilt. Yes,
Correct.
shoulders move right. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So the head tilt means I'm considering something you're saying right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking that all in. And those little indicators that we have is really giving us the affirmations that we need to continue down the path. And if they begin to disagree, then you'll see stuff like this. They'll maybe go, well, they'll start rubbing their nose or, and these are tells. And so we now have to start to move our conversation back to where they were in their point of agreement before. So people will tell you, in many cases, if you're able to watch those small movements and those small indicators in their body, exactly how to move the conversation along. And then another thing that you were just talking about, Doc, that I think is important is the way in which you communicate is very intentional. So when you ask, well, what is ninja communications? You also are speaking intentionally. And intention is a very powerful thing. It's not just the fact that, okay, I've got to get my words together so I can say the right stuff. But if I come in and my intention is to close this business deal today that we've been working on, then what's going to happen is I send a signal in my subconscious mind. And now the words that I need, the gestures that I need, even the comments, maybe I mentioned golf and the guy's a golfer. I mentioned baseball and the guy's an avid ball player. And he's like, I can't believe that you like the same thing I like. And now that one thing changed the outcome. But that happened because you were intentional about an outcome. And as a ninja communicator, when you go in with an intentionality to get a desired outcome. Mm-hmm. Now, if you add that to a couple of other pieces that we're going to unpack, like for an example, in the emotional causation conversation, now you're on steroids. You can see inside of that person's intention, and that makes you very effective. So the ninja communication piece is about stealth, it's about observation, and it's about intentionality.
Hmm. Hmm. And to our audience, I really did read his book. I actually read it on a flight to Los Angeles and back. And I usually keep 2 or 3 books with me, and I read them. I may read 20 or 30 pages of one, then ship to the next. Nope, I stuck to the whole book from beginning to end. It was really a page turner in terms of useful and helpful and insightful information. Terms that I had not known myself, things I had not thought about. And you just said another one that I speak intentionally. I never thought about it that way, but that's a powerful observation. Um, in your book, you discuss something called chemo signals. Is that the same as pheromones, or are they different things?
Yes, well, so it's actually chemo signals, right?
Chemo. Okay.
As and with the chemo signals and pheromones, we can differentiate that. But this is some pretty cool stuff, and most of us don't know about it. So just to quickly make the differentiation, pheromones are believed to be, they're found in animals, they're found in humans. They're believed to be these microscents that we pick up, that we respond to, but they're primarily used in male-female engagement. Because if a woman and a man are attracted to each other and the pheromones are active, the attraction is based on the fact that I can make a very healthy baby with you as a woman, or you can, or as a man, I can impregnate you, make a very healthy baby, or the woman is saying, you would be a good mate for me. And we literally have these vestiges, and I'm not an advocate of evolution per se, but we have these vestiges of survival that are still in our systems. And this allows us to pick a mate that would be more suitable for us in terms of procreation. Now chemo signals are a bit different. Chemo signals are emitted, and they have started doing some fascinating research. Like, I'm here in Houston, and in the University of Austin, they took about 30 women, half of which were ovulating, the other half that was not ovulating. They told them to wear a t-shirt, no perfumes, no lotions, no potions, and just wear it for 2 or 3 nights, and then put it in a Ziploc bag and send it in. And they had men in this test group, and the men were told to smell each bag, open it up, smell it, and decide if they were attracted to that woman or not. And an overwhelming 90% of the men chose the women that were ovulating as being the more desirable. So that woman in her ovulation was emitting a chemo signal. Now, they also did an inverted test where they had men, and they subjected the men to 2 emotions, fear and disgust. And they captured their sweat at the moment of fear. They captured their sweat at the moment of disgust, and they put it on swabs, and they had women smell it. And they carefully filmed their face. And when the women were smelling the fear-based sweat, they literally felt fearful. You could see fear in their eyes. And when they felt the disgust, they were, like repulsed, disgusted. And so they mimicked the emotions of the men's sweat without ever meeting these men or knowing who these men were. So there are nonverbal signals that are happening on a number of different levels. Now, you mentioned this shift that's taken place with everything that's gone on. Well, Dr. Anthony Fauci, about a month and a half ago, declared the handshake dead. Right? He said, yeah, don't shake anyone's hand, bow, whatever, right? And most of us are used to extending our hand and shaking somebody's hand. That's what we do. Or perhaps we hug them if we feel a desire to do that. But I wanted to just take a minute to talk about the importance of that as it pertains to chemosigns. Because, when someone shakes another person's hand, it's not just a customary greeting. You as an individual, you're picking up information from that handshake. You are picking up not just the warmth of their hand, but you're picking up energy frequencies. And did you know an astounding, they did a test, a survey, they filmed this, 65% of people that shake other people's hand, according to this particular research, smells their fingers after shaking that person's hand. And they do it on a subconscious level. Like they'll shake hands and then they'll just be talking and they'll just kind of put their hand by their mouth. And what they're doing is smelling their fingers and they're taking in information about that other person. And it has nothing to do with the cologne, nothing to do with the perfume. It's actually chemical signals that they're picking up to determine things like, is this a benevolent person? Is this a malevolent person? Is this somebody I can trust? You know, different nuances like that are literally picked up in these chemo signals. So this is just, you know, fascinating stuff. And, you know, there's an aspect of touch that we as humans need. And so this idea that we can't touch is, you know, one of the things, Dr. Fraser, that I experienced at the Power Networking Conference last year that I loved was how everybody hugged.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I know that feels good, but since you know, I'm a bit of a nerd, I just have to go there. There's a scientific basis for that and the energy that you created in that room, because there was anybody who's ever attended a power networking conference will tell you that the energy is palpable and it's inescapable. You are in some kind of a force field and you don't know what's enwrapped you, but something has. And if you haven't gone, you have to go. You know, I have to tell you folks, it's an amazing, amazing experience. And one of the things that I think helps in that energy is the fact that the heart is a underrated organ. We're always talking about the brain, but here's a couple of really interesting things about the heart. The heart has a resonance, an electromagnetic frequency that is actually 40 times more powerful than the brain. It emits 40 times more electromagnetic frequencies than the brain. Now, in addition to that, the heart has...
Oscar, does the heart in itself, does the heart have a brain, so to speak, as well?
Absolutely. I was just going to say that. The heart literally has, for a lack of a better word, a brain. Now, how does that break down? Your heart has 40,000 neurons in the heart itself. Now, if you remember the term neurons, you'll know that neurons are in the brain, and the neurons lead to neurosynaptic firings. And what a neurosynaptic firing does is it's two separate units in neurons that fire and communicate across a line. When that synaptic firing takes place, that's where memories are formed, that's where emotions are formed. And that is literally one of the energetic glues that hold us together. When you hear about the power of love, it's not just a metaphor. It is a literal physical thing. Your heart emits this powerful wave. So when two humans, and in Eastern philosophy, we call this is a chakra point. So when two humans connect their heart chakras, there is an exchange of energy that's taking place inside between those two humans that bonds them in many ways. So your energy actually is going to increase as you have people that are hugging each other. And to prove that, and you can do this with family, try giving someone that half little Hollywood hug where you kind of bump shoulders and you kiss a little bit. Then tell them to put their arm out straight in front of them and you try to push it down and they'll be weak. You'll be able to push it down like that. Now, those two people, you get them to hold and embrace each other heart to heart, and then tell them to try to push that on down. You won't be able to move it because their physiology has now changed. They're now stronger because of this energy exchange through the neurons and through the electromagnetic frequencies that the heart emits. So there's a real scientific reason and a method to the madness why we are compelled to hug. And as we were saying with regard to touch, look, for all my beautiful sisters out there, I grew up with 3 sisters, and you all remember the hot comb nobody liked the hot comb. When Big Mama took the hot comb and she started straightening your hair, you knew that you were like a millimeter away from being branded and ironed, but you did like that straight hair, right? I mean, the things we do for love. But think about when mom was shampooing your hair, or when you go to a salon. I used to be a trichologist. That's a hair and scalp treatment specialist. And I never did hair, but I analyzed women's hair for 15 years. I learned all about the workings of our beautiful Black sisters. And what was interesting, one time a woman asked me, because her stylist, which was my employee, didn't show up, could I shampoo her hair? I won't tell anybody, Oscar, I know you're not licensed to do this. And I said, okay. And I started shampooing her hair, and I was giving her a massage. And she was like, oh yeah, like, you get it. I'm not going to go there, but she almost went there. And what I was observing was that all of her tension, which I could feel because I've done energy work, was in her shoulders and her head. And so she was actually telling me how it felt like she just went through a yoga session or something, and she felt so relieved because of the power of touch. And all of us have that ability to be able to move and shift that energy.
Yeah, that's powerful. It brings me to a small story I tell all the time about the biggest complaint I get about the Power Networking Conference. The biggest complaint I get is people come to me and say, Dr. Fraser, the conference was incredible. And I went back home and I tried to explain it to my friends. And she said, Dr. Fraser, I couldn't explain it. I said to them, you just have to be there. That is the default explanation of 90% of the people that try to explain the Power Networking Conference. Now, you explained the reason why. It is that hugging tradition and culture that we have inculcated into the spirit of the conference. You know, we may be the only conference where at the end of the conference, all of the faculty, all 50 of us, line up, and then everybody in the conference lines up at the end of the conference, and everybody goes down the entire line of faculty member and gets a hug, right? This may be one of the most memorable experiences that people talk about other than the content. So, but you just explained, I never quite understood the dynamics of that. I just knew that it felt good. And it worries me, October the 14th to the 17th, how will we pull that off with sort of a new fear-based touching mindset? And I have to think about that. Is there a way to approximate that? And based on what I'm hearing you say, you know, a fist pump or an elbow, it ain't going to do it. You know, yeah. It's nice and it's a nice gesture and it's polite, but it's different than hugging. No question Absolutely. About that. And we tell people all the time, we're not a handshake conference, we're a hugging conference. And for all the reasons you expressed, that's powerful. One of the more interesting sciences and the least known is something called emotional causation. Yes. And explain that to our audience and what that is, and let's discuss some examples of that.
Yes. That's a huge one. And especially for ladies, those of you listening, I will ask you, as Brother Bedford has, to please share this. This piece is life-saving. So about maybe 8 or 9 years ago, while I was a practitioner, I was asked to join, and those of you in Houston or affiliated with Houston know of the Sisters Network. The Sisters Network is the largest African-American breast cancer survivor network in the country. And I was asked to speak, and I was the last speaker. I don't have a lot of letters behind my name. And all these doctors, oncologists, palliative care specialists, all these incredible doctors. Houston's the largest medical center in the world. I don't know how many people know that, but all these incredible doctors speak. And here I am, I'm the last guy. It's a Saturday. And there's about 500 women in the audience. They're tired, and okay, the health and wellness guy is going to say a couple words. So I go up and I gave them kind of an overview. And then I said, okay, ladies, I'd like to ask you, not by a show of hands, but in the privacy of your own mind, to think about which side your breast cancer started on. And I saw them processing that. And then I said, okay, there's something called emotional causation. Now, that doesn't mean that you didn't have physical things that attributed to this disease, but every physical illness that you have, there's a corresponding emotion to that illness. And when somebody thinks persistently about a fear or a hurt or an anger, those negative emotions transmute into a physical health problem. So I asked them to think about that. And I said, if it started in your right breast, that would likely mean that a man, it could be your husband, ex-husband, father, your son, but some significant man in your life hurt you, and you held on to that hurt, and you held on to that resentment until it started eating away at the self. Now, if it was the left breast, then it's possible that you may have gotten angry with yourself, with your mother, with your sister. You held on to hurt, you held on to anger, and it started eating away at the self. So you need to let that go, because it's like taking poison every day and wishing someone else would die. And when I said those words, the level of emotion in that room swelled to a crescendo, and everybody, including myself, became emotional. And at that moment, I was just taken out of my body for a minute, because I realized how powerful emotional causation is, and how many women do the physical work. They get the chemotherapy, they change their diets, they start eating right, but they never let go of the anger. They never let go of the resentment. And that affects everything. And I'm not just talking about cancer. Cancer is holding on to old hurt and old anger. Those women lined up down the hall and they were hugging me, and I was hugging them, until one of them said, "Where's your book?" And I said, "Well, I haven't written it yet, but guess what? I wrote it now." And we had that moment. And then I realized that there was other correlations, right? So for an example, and I'm just going to ramble off a couple of them. Teeth problems generally is indecision, when somebody's not being decisive. Stomach problems is fear about the future. Knee problems, not feeling supported. Diabetes, and this is a big one. When someone has diabetes, they have a sense that the best of their life is now in the past, that the best is behind them, that there's not as much to look forward to in the future as there was in the past. And so when we start understanding, like if someone just happens to walk in, like I was doing business at the radio station one day, and this guy comes in and he's talking about how much money he makes and all of this stuff. And he gets out of the chair, and I see him wince and hold his back. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Oh man, my lower back's been bothering me." Well, lower back problems means fear about money, financial issues. And this is the kind of information that can also help you close business deals. So I was negotiating with a well-known individual. I can't mention his name. And we were talking, and I noticed he had a scar on his neck. And it was a surgical scar. Now we're negotiating about this individual possibly coming on to the radio station. So I mentioned health, and then he said, "It's funny because I had to get my thyroid removed a while back." And I said, "Really?" Now, if you're practicing ninja communications, that means something to you. So as soon as he said that, what the thyroid represents is a persistent emotion of, when is it going to be my turn? When do I get a chance to do what I want to do? I've done for everybody else, I've helped everyone else, but I haven't done what I wanted for myself. And I knew that was his story, but the thyroid issue really confirmed it. So then I said, you know, a time comes in everyone's life when we get to a certain age where it's time for us to build our legacy, when it's our turn. And he looked at me like he saw a ghost. He said, that's exactly what I was thinking. And I went, yep. So the part of emotional causation to understand is that every single thing that you see, including what happens in your own body, tells a story. And if you can reverse the thinking, if you can use certain affirmations, if you can do certain exercises to release anger, fear, resentment, anxiety, those things, when they go away, your physical ailments often go away with them.
That's powerful. Is that in your book?
Yes.
I'm trying
Yes.
to remember. Yeah.
There is actually a section which it's pretty fascinating. It has like a list of different things, like correlations of different, some of the things that I was just explaining.
Yeah.
And it's good to know what those are. You know, we actually do a workshop. It's an online workshop that allows for people to really delve into it more in depth. But it's something that I recommend that everybody pay attention to, if nothing else, just for the sake of your own body and your own health, you know, so that's important.
Yeah. If there were three things you could recommend women do as habitually as possible for mental and physical health, there was something they could habitualize. So there were three things, two or three things. What would they be?
Yes, excellent question. The first would be to practice a form of meditation. You can call it prayer, you can call it, and preferably early in the morning. And I know you have a busy day, generally speaking, but if you can get up a little bit earlier, where the kids are not running around, the husband's still asleep, whatever the case might be, and you do a breathing exercise with gratitude. And I like to meditate using something called binaural beats. And binaural beats are just frequencies, like you can look them up on YouTube, 4.28 hertz, and you listen to that, and it actually regulates your brain so that you can really focus, and you do deep breathing and focus on what you're grateful for. So that would be number one. Number two, I would really recommend that you look at your eating habits and shift some things. The most important thing that anyone, and this applies to men as equally as to women, is that we should, especially in the age of COVID, we should alkalinize our bodies. We alkalinize our bodies by eating dark green leafy vegetables, getting on green food powders, and then avoiding sugars, avoiding caffeines, avoiding tobacco. Those things acidify the system. And stress, believe it or not, stress acidifies the system, and calm alkalinizes the system. So on that plane of your eating, I would do that along with regular exercise, something you're doing to walk every day, to sweat. I'm a salsa dancer. I love dancing, and that's a great cathartic way to get rid of those clogged, right under your armpits. You have the lymphatic system, your endocrine system. All of that needs to be perspired out so that you're getting rid of toxins. I know this is bleeding over into more than three. And then the final thing, let's say that's number three.
And these same things, Oscar, apply for men as well?
Yes, sir.
Or there's some more male-oriented things?
So I think with the first two things I said, they absolutely apply to both men and women universally. This third one is a little bit more specific to women.
Okay.
And we could talk about men, but sisters, you all are nurturers. When your first baby is in your arms, you're releasing vasopressin and oxytocin. Those are the love hormones. You are bonding. You bond to men, you bond to sisters you have, you bond to people you love. And when those people hurt you or you feel betrayed by them, you get angry. And if you hold that anger in, it affects you in so many different ways that it's incalculable. It is better to release all of that and let it go. And I'm saying that specifically to women, not that that doesn't apply to men, but because women are nurturers, their energy is such that they're caretakers. And when someone betrays that trust, it hurts them deeply and justifiably so, but you've got to let it go. Because if you don't, I can't tell you, I'm talking from 3 people that I loved and adored that died of cancer. And 2 of them, I begged them to let go of their relationships, and they just couldn't do it. So that's specific more to women, and women, they have larger hippocampuses, bigger brains, their amygdalias, and they overthink sometimes. And that could be a challenge because you'll process something into ad nauseum. You got to let it go. If we talk about men, men are a little bit different. Men don't always hold on to those resentments like a woman does, but what a man is often guilty of is, especially in a relationship, is not showing enough compassion, love, and understanding to the people around them, especially if they're in power, if they're intolerant. That intolerance, it breeds contempt in your space. So I would encourage men to be more understanding, to allow for the different things that you need to be accepting and loving. And you're going to have to be firm, but you don't have to be a jerk, And so I would encourage men to think about that, women to think about letting go of those anger, because both of those behaviors lead to physiological issues. That's why a lot of men have heart problems, because if they're dealing with cardiovascular issues, they're usually being hard when it comes to how they're expressing love in some part of their life. That would be the emotional causation for heart issues.
Yeah. I've been married 47 years to the same sister. And I've had to make some major adjustments, certainly in my own personality. But one major thing that I did, I remember in let's say the first decade or 2 of my marriage, I used to categorize Nora Jean's conversation. Don't forget this, don't forget that. Did you do this? As nagging, right? And then as I grew older and wiser and more mature, I converted that in my own mind from nagging, not really nagging, just caring,
Yes.
right? Concerned, right? Wanted to dot I's and cross T's and helpful. So I converted nagging to helpfulness and caring, right? And that made a whole lot of difference in how one of the elements that helped to sustain this relationship to nearly 50 years. So this has been incredible advice. Incredible. You don't get this on the normal podcast.
No.
When people understand these techniques, Oscar, it's like getting a new superpower.
Yep.
And of course, everyone should get this book. They really should. But for those who want to dive deeper or to master these techniques that you're talking about, because they're techniques for sure, what tools are available to them?
Yes. Yes. Well, there are several. Of course, the book is something that you can download or you can get on Amazon, and we can provide that information. But there are also workshops. I partnered with Les Brown last summer. We did a very comprehensive workshop we collaborated on together. There is a Ninja Communications workshop that is actually live video. So you're seeing demonstrations of different nuances. And they're really interesting things that we get into, you know, little exercises that you can do. For an example, like you have people that are right-handed or left-handed. We can determine if you're right-eyed or left-eyed, because which eye you look in influences the outcome of a conversation, because you're talking to a different side of the brain with each eye that you look into. So we get into details like that in this workshop. It's an online self-paced workshop individuals can take to really start delving deeper into the nuances of what you should be looking for every time you communicate with someone.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you took it right up to the time, 8 o'clock. These hours go fast, man. They really,
especially when you're having fun.
talkative and deep and insightful information. Brother Bedford, do you have anything you want to add? Any questions?
Yeah, George, I do have one question, because this was just so good. This was so good, Oscar. Thank you so much. And you said they can get the training, but can you give the website? Can you give the website where
Yes,
your
yes.
book is available and
Yes.
everything? We want to make sure that they have the accurate information. And then after you give that, I do have just one quick question that I'd like to ask.
Sure, sure. So for those of you who'd like to connect, the easiest way is OscarHines.com. It's OSCARHINES, OscarHines.com. That takes you right to the website. You'll be able to see all the different workshops and things that we have. And I would like to also invite viewers to the Edge Radio Network platform. EdgeRadioNetwork.com is that website, but you can also pull it up on Facebook. We are live streaming, so and interested in some of content providers. So would love for individuals to reach out and instant message us. Would love to talk to some of these incredible thinkers. So OscarHines.com, Brother Bedford. Thank you very much for that.
No, I appreciate you, Oscar, with that. And so the question I want to ask it, you spoke to it so beautifully, George, because as you were mentioning the feeling of the Power Networking Conference and people not being able to explain it. So when he was talking about it, it hit me too. I said, man, that is the answer as to why nobody can explain the feeling that they receive at the Power Networking Conference. Now, prior to us getting into the conversation, I mentioned these two skill sets. And I know some people probably got on a little bit late because of the streaming issue, where we've been streaming for the most part all the way through just the beginning part. And I mentioned these two skill sets for us, obviously as just people to learn, but as business owners and entrepreneurs to learn: effective networking and, of course, the art of influence. And I think you've touched on some, you and Dr. Fraser. I think you and Dr. Fraser have done something, because Dr. Fraser doesn't teach networking the way that traditional people network, and that's why it's so effective. It's not a European construct. Those concepts don't really resonate with us. So Dr. George Fraser goes deep when he talks about click. And so my point is, can you really speak to, because your art of influence is completely different from the marketing tactics and Cialdini and all of these people that we study, where there's this European philosophy. You really take us deep into connecting with people and reading people. How patient do you have to be to learn this, and how can you apply this in combination with what Dr. Fraser teaches us in Click?
You know, just beautifully expressed, and you're spot on. It does require patience. I like to use the analogy of learning a new language. If you were learning Spanish, for example, and you were able to pick up a few words and notice a few things, it's a practice. And you really begin to perfect it. We heard Dr. Fraser talk about honing his skills over many, many years as a communicator. And I really think for those who are seriously looking at this as a new asset that you can add to your arsenal, a new arrow in your quiver, individuals have no idea you are reading all these nuances. I could be glancing down at someone's notes when they're waiting to see me. Like I always insist, my staff, I mean, new employees, they write out an application, not just their resume. I'm looking at does the handwriting lean to the right or left? Okay, if it's to the right, you're an extrovert. If it's to the left, you're an introvert. And so now I know how to approach them. It's a simple little thing, but you can effectively change your paradigm if you learn this language. So the patients, there is some involved. A lot of it you're going to get quick because all it is bringing to your awareness what you already knew. We are talking to such an accomplished audience that many of you are like, when you read it, you'll be like, that's why I do that, or that's why I say that. Now I'm going to be more intentional when I do those things. So I really feel like there's going to be a short learning curve for many people. Others, it's going to take a while because it's also building social intelligence, which is something that is critical. Your SI is just as important as your IQ. And we have to do that. So it'll take a little time. I would say 3 to 6 months to become proficient. Read the book a few times, highlight it, and do the workshop. The online workshop is very, very helpful with that.
Yeah. This is absolutely required, George, because this combined with Click is the new way. After this, because business will never be the same. And if you don't know how to effectively network the way that you teach it and learn how to influence and deal with people and communicate the way that Oscar's teaching it going forward, you're going to have a problem. So I think this is something that's mandatory for us right now.
Yeah, no question. This is a skill that one needs to achieve exceptionalism and mastery. The power of influence, the power of effective communications, the power of words, the power of speaking to the whole person, looking at the whole person you spoke on. I mean, it's just incredible, rich advice. Read Oscar's book. Oscar, do they did you say they get the book from you, or they go on Amazon, or what's the?
Yeah, I was going to clarify. I'm glad you asked the question. So if you're like the old school that like to actually have it in your hand and touch it and feel it, go to Amazon, and just look up Ninja Communications, and you can order the book. It'll come within a few days from Amazon. If you want to download the digital, you can just go to oscarhines.com and just download it from there. And you'll have it in your inbox within minutes, and you can start working on it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too. I am, I like the tactile. I like reading books, and of course I jack them up with, folding the edges of the page, highlighting this, starring that, circling this, and you look at my books up there, it looked like a madman read them. But it just depends on your style. Both can be effective, because now even with reading books, you can highlight it. They got all kinds of tools that you can mark it up. So it's all good. This has been an incredible discussion. Oscar talked about the Power Networking Conference. We are down. Oscar's now 29 on our All-Star podcast. On Thursday, we'll have Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant. She will be 30, and that will be the end. Okay, that will be the end of this series. This season, this is the spring season. Yes, we are planning a summer season. We're going to take some time off. We're going to allow Brother Bedford to visit with his wife and his children. See, he does have a family, and we're going to give him some time off because we love him, and we're going to need to get back in the saddle, in several weeks after we put this thing together. So we're going to make this offer, the special Power Networking Conference offer. Remember, you're now running out of time. This offer will not be available in the next season. This is a special season. It's our COVID season, all kinds of extenuating circumstances. We wanted to do everything to get you inspired and to get you encouraged and get you motivated and to provide you deep value in terms of coming to the Power Networking Conference. October the 14th through the 17th in Houston, Texas, right in Oscar's backyard. Yes, Oscar will be speaking. He'll be doing a workshop, so you will get to know him. Now, I can't promise you're going to get to touch him. We don't know what the circumstances will be. And we've got to think that through, how we are going to continue to create that kind of energy and environment, this palpable energy in our conference. But we'll think that through, but we'll come up with something because we're Black and we're creative. So that's A. So the conference, October 14th through the 17th in Houston, Texas. It's a place where you connect, grow, and prosper. If you're interested in starting a business, building a business, changing your financial situation, getting some economic and financial education that will take you and your family or your significant other to a whole nother level, this is the place to be. Now we also talk about wellness, but the fundamental agenda of the Power Networking Conference is business and money. But we have a serious wellness component where we talk about health and the mind. Right, that Black people are we are out of our natural minds. You do know that, right? We need some healing. We need some therapy. So we have some wonderful workshops on getting our minds together. And there's no better opportunity to seize on this moment than right now. So you know that an adult registration at the Power Networking Conference is $1,500. We sell out every year. Don't wait. It's going to be sold out. So it's $1,500 for one adult. And we encourage you to bring a young person, 17 to 25. We call it a college age student. So we should be conferencing. Black people should be conferencing with our young people, whether it's your children, with someone that you're mentoring, someone that you're coaching, so that and we don't have them, go in groups and gangs of people, kids running around the conference. We don't do that. They are accompanied by an adult. They sit next to that adult so they can be mentored, and and relationships and new introductions can be facilitated for you by the adult that is with you. That is our art and science. So and a student registration is $800. So an adult registration is $1,500. Put them together, that's $2,300. Right. So we're going to take off $1,900 and make available to you an adult and student registration for $399. It costs us more than that just to feed you. Okay. So this is next to the last time that you'll have any opportunity to do this. Take advantage of it. We limit it to 5 people only. 5 people only. And the way to do that, you have to go through me. You can go to our website and see everything you want to see about the Power Networking Conference, powernetworkingconference.com. That's powernetworkingconference.com. There is an offer on the site, but it's not this offer. Okay, so if you are interested in this offer, you have to email me at gfraser@frasernet.com. gfraser@frasernet.com. FRAS as in Sam, ER. Okay, gfraser@frasernet.com. Say in the subject line, I'm in. That's all you have to say. Then in the body of the email, put your full name and your cell number. Full name and cell number. Full name and cell number. And then email it to me. The first 5 people, all emails are time-stamped, right? So I know who the first 5 people are. Will get a call from me. It's my way to touch you and you to touch me. And we'll close the deal. We'll do the paperwork over the phone. Okay? So for anyone that's interested, that's how you do it. So that's our show tonight. Any closing thoughts, Oscar? Any final words? And then we'll ask Brother Bedford the same thing, and then I will close it out.
Yes, I want to thank you for having me this evening. It's been a great conversation, and just want to say to all of our brothers and sisters out there, we realize that it's going to take all of us to become a cohesive unit to really overcome what has been happening. And what the Power Networking Conference has already undertaken is exactly what we need. We need to start supporting each other's businesses and patronizing each other and creating this global economy. I would like to see everybody facilitate the ability to communicate better through understanding things that others don't see and observing things that others don't know. And so I invite you to join us in strengthening our skill sets, but also passing those skill sets on to our children. I raised my 3 kids by myself, and I gave them a copy of the book, and I said, study it because it's going to help you anywhere, anytime. But I want to really encourage everybody more than ever. Let's unify, and let's not stop till we get to the other side. But thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.
You know what I've observed about you up close and personal, and it even comes through the screen. This may sound a little strange, but I got to say it. You have the perfect balance of male energy and female energy. It comes out in your tone of voice and how you comport yourself. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And you're modeling the behavior that we should expect from our people. I appreciate that. Brother Bedford?
Thank you.
George, just rather quickly, I just echo what Oscar said. I mean, just the information that has been shared tonight is it's profound. And I would just encourage everyone. We mentioned the conference, but if you, prior to the conference, get those 2 books that we've been talking. You should get Click and you should get Ninja Communications, because going forward after COVID, after the protests, after everything that's happening, and we've talked about this paradigm shift, the way that we do business and the way that we communicate is going to be completely different. So you're getting the first taste of how you should be constructing your business going forward in 2021 and beyond. So I'm going to OscarHines.com tonight myself. I'm going to pull out my book. Its Click is over here, and I'm going to have these 2 books, and George Click is already marked up and bunny-eared and all of that good stuff as well. But study. And that's what's going to help us. We have to begin to study, and this type of material is of paramount importance if we're to come out and thrive on the other side of this.
Yeah. So my final quote for tonight, my final thought for tonight is in the spirit of Oscar Hines' rich conversation with us tonight. And I want you to remember this, that 10% of conflicts are due to difference of opinion, and 90% are due to tone of voice. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Love you. See you on Thursday for our final podcast.